Welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the vlog and what it is. So, Toby, tell us the history of A Gypsy's Kiss.
A Gypsy's Kiss started out as the name of my sailboat back when I was living on the East Coast. But I also had created a vlog that was a storytelling vlog based on our adventures, my family's adventures on A Gypsy's Kiss. And the blog was called A Gypsy's Kiss. When I moved out to New Mexico, about a year after arriving here, I started looking for the Fenn treasure. And so I changed the direction of the blog from our family adventures, because it really wasn't about the family. The family had grown up and spread out. And it was more about what I was doing in terms of searching for Forrest Fenn's treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And then back in, I think about 2-3 years ago, we decided to, hey, that's good news. We decided to start a new business, Streaming New Mexico, got
Mm-hmm.
really busy with it, and I had to make a choice about where I was going to invest my time. And I made the decision to invest it in Streaming New Mexico, so I let my blog go.
Mm-hmm.
I let everybody know that I was going to. But we've just recently sold the business, and I'm back to being kind of retired.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can restart our search. And so I thought it'd be a nice time to restart A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog.
Okay, so what initially got you interested and excited about the hidden Fenn treasure, the treasure?
What originally got me excited was, I think, just hearing it on the news. There was a news article, Gotti Schwartz. At the time, I think he was working for KOB. And he had become, I didn't know at the time, but he had become a real adamant searcher. But he was friends, at least acquaintances, probably friends with Forrest.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a couple of really good articles, KOB TV articles on Forrest and the treasure, and it intrigued me. And then, of course, I went and bought the book and read the poem. And like everyone else, I realized at the end of the book I knew exactly where it was. And that weekend I headed up into the mountains north of Santa Fe and realized, oh, no, it's not going to be that easy. And I searched again until, as I said, we started the business. I was very active searcher, searching all over New Mexico. I didn't leave the state. And searched all over New Mexico again until we started the business, then focused on the business, and now I'm ready to go back and start looking again.
Okay, so what's your background that helps you when you're trying to analyze the information in the book and the poem and try to figure out all the clues?
So I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I spent 10 years with the National Security Agency, 5 years with the Army Security Agency, 10 years with another 5 years with the National Security Agency at Fort George G. Meade. I also spent most of my career dealing with the intelligence community, and I did a lot of traveling for them. And most of what I did while working for the agency was basically intelligence analysis. And I think that prepared me, gave me the tools and the skills needed to take a project like this, which to me it is, and start doing critical analysis of it based on who the person is, what they've said, what they've done, how they behave, what they've written, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I think that leads me in a more pragmatic direction, because one of the things about the skills that are developed in intelligence analysis is you can tell real quickly whether or not you're going down a rabbit hole, or even worse, whether or not you've created your own rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. And I think so. My perspective tends to be pragmatic and realistic, and it's all analysis based. So I feel like I have a good background in that area.
Okay. What has made you decide to take your Gypsy's Kiss blog and turn it into a weekly vlog?
Well, it was a combination of things. First, I was influenced by the work that you and I had been doing in streaming weekly podcasts,
right,
in serving our customers with that kind of project. And although I consider myself a fair writer, it's a painful process for me. Mm-hmm. So I can write, and again, because of my analytical skills, what I write tends to be pretty good. but it's a lot easier for me to talk about things. I believe that when each of us as individuals was created, we either got DNA that made us writers or DNA that made us talkers.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a talker.
I know you are.
Yeah. So
Okay. And why now? What spurred you to come back now?
it was a combination of things. First, downsizing, but not downsizing, but selling the business, finding some more time. And again, your influence, because I don't know where we started this, but you indicated that you had an interest in what I was doing. And I think whenever somebody does that to you, you say, well, yeah, I've got literally plastic containers full of research materials that I could bring out. And I had some ideas that were outside of New Mexico, and I realized I needed to go explore those while I still had the opportunity, while I still had the health and the interest. And I think the influence that you brought into the picture caused me to say, okay, well, I'm ready to do this again. I'm really excited about it.
I, in fact, actually did.
Not
I did.
not honestly that I've ever lost excitement about it,
Right.
but just in terms of prioritization. I just didn't have, I can't build a business, couldn't have built a business and dedicated the amount of time I needed to this search at the same time.
Right. And I actually did. I called Toby one day and I said, while I was meditating, it came to me that we need to go search for the treasure because this is our year. So I think that reignited that passion.
Yeah. I think so. And as you can tell by the amount of time that I've been staying up at night, going back into digging into my research and finding my spring targets, if you will, it's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the travels that we're going to be doing in the spring.
What sorts of topics are we going to be covering in our weekly vlog?
I think we're going to cover the same things that I used to write about. And what I used to write about was the summarization of research into a particular area that I had done. I would do some research, I'd come to some assumptions. As a result of the assumptions, I'd weed out the bad ones and then come to some conclusions, and I would write about it. So, a blog post was the 9 clues, there's 9 sentences, there's 9, there's lots of nines here. Is each sentence a clue? And I could write for that for a little bit. And I think people appreciated that because it gave them a different perspective. It certainly resulted in a lot of commentary, both positive and negative, but that's part of having a blog. So we're going to cover a lot of the things that I find interesting in the research. I don't think what I can do at any point in time is tell you exactly where the treasure is. No one can. There's only one person on the face of the planet that can. I have ideas where it is, but even more importantly, there's things that I find in my research that are curious to me, and I like covering those topics. So, so we'll talk about those topics more often than not. And as we evolve in our travels, I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to record record stories about what we've been doing, where we've been going, et cetera, et cetera. There's still a little bit of work to be done in New Mexico, mostly to kind of eliminate the locations. I think I've eliminated all the possibilities in my perspective, and I'm sure there are lots of searchers in New Mexico that would disagree with me. But from my perspective, I feel like I've eliminated all the possibilities in New Mexico. I have to go someplace else.
So this is going to be very visual because we'll have photos and video clips and stories to tell go along with those.
Yeah, I just can't help do it that way because all the work that I've done thus far, if you go back to the first part of my blog, the blog that's up there right now that I left behind, it is very visual. There's commentary, but there's a lot of visual, and I used to document all my missions, and I would include those on my blog, so people knew what I was thinking pretty much.
And you had a lot of interaction on your blog?
I did. I had a lot of people who, the blog itself in the past couple of years had close to 300,000 views and a lot of activity, and I still get people asking questions. It'll pop up in my email every once in a while. So I think that will continue to happen. And I think doing it this way will give people the opportunity to start kind of considering what we're saying. So
Yeah. And so they're still going to be invited to come into the conversation and make comments either on your blog or Facebook?
yeah, what at your recommendation, you being a social media master, I picked several social media channels, including Facebook, Vimeo, where this blog is going to reside, and Instagram. So we have the blog itself, a Gypsy Kiss. Then Instagram, Facebook, and Vimeo are all the channels that will be moving this content, channeling this content throughout. Yeah.
And a place where people can come and leave their comments and questions.
Exactly, and what I'm hoping for is that we get the kind of questions that have universal appeal and universal interest, because then I can address them in the following week's vlogcast. So,
Terrific.
for lack of a better way to describe
So
it.
speaking of, what are we talking about this week? What's our topic?
So our topic this week is based on the visit that you and I made to Forrest's house to visit Forrest last Friday. And it was interesting because although I had met Forrest and spoken with him several times, you met him once at a book signing, and it was a
Right.
very short, it wasn't
It
the
was a
kind of,
large group of people
yeah,
there.
large group of people, but he was trying to get everyone attention. I think we got a picture
Yes.
with you and him. So it was the first time that you could sit down and listen to him, and what I found that was interesting was, as we left and talked about it, you had kind of a different perspective, and in some cases a new perspective on some of the things that he was talking about. And I think I thought that would make for a good conversation, so we're going to talk
All
about
right.
that today.
Great. So, first, we visited
Yeah, we showed up at Forrest's
Forrest's house. Well, you had contacted him by email ahead of time.
Yeah,
Requested
I
time
asked,
to
I
get
basically asked
together.
permission if we could come by to visit. He and I hadn't talked we hadn't exchanged emails for about 6 months, I'd say. So I told him we were going to be in Santa Fe, and that if we could come by to visit, he agreed. And so his office, as you go through I probably shouldn't describe that, should I? So he led us into his office, and as we were going down the stairs, he mentioned, or did I mention?
You brought up the raffle that you saw on Dale's
That's right.
blog, Is
The
it?
raffle that they're conducting on Dale's
and you were asking
blog,
for more information
and the money was
about
going
that.
to charity, and I wanted to had more information so that we could promote it for him.
Right.
And as he did that, he walked over very adroitly, actually, what I thought was interesting. He walked over to his desk, opened one of the drawers, pulled out something.
And
didn't
as I
realize
was
what it
taking
was.
off my coat,
Yeah, he tossed it at me. Right? He
and I
tossed
was like,
it at
what
me.
was that?
And luckily, I had something in my hand, a camera. There was something
Your
in my
phone
hand.
or your iPod?
And I grabbed it. I caught it. And I realized it was this bag of the money that's being
Right.
given away in the raffle. And he said, take a picture of that.
And
And-
why is it shredded?
It's shredded, as the story goes, and as he's told more often than once, is his little dog, who now rests in peace, chewed, and it wasn't for this reason, chewed it up one day. He had left it on the table, had left
This
some
was
cash.
several years ago.
Yeah, this was several years ago. Left the cash on the table. His granddaughter tried to put it back, and the little dog chewed it all up, swallowed a couple of the pieces that they had to recollect, I guess. I don't know.
Recollect and
Yeah.
wash them in the
Wash
washing
them,
machine,
that's right.
I think you said.
And he was responsible for that. And they put it in a bag, and it sat there, and then for years, literally. And somebody got an idea. Actually, I think there was a point at which one of his granddaughters attempted to start putting it together like a puzzle, and became, after just a little bit, very frustrated, because as you can see, there's no regularity. $50 and $100 bills, I think he said.
Right.
And they're still in there, and I think he said there was it $1,300 or $1,600?
I think all of it was $1,200 to $1,300, something
Yeah,
like that.
$1,200 to $1,300 in cash if you put it all back together. So what they decided to do is, Forrest has always been very good about giving to charities. So what they decided to do is raffle it off on Dale's site and give the money to charity. I can't remember specifically what charity it was, but I'll include a link to the raffle if you want to participate. Tickets are $10 each, and I think you get discounts for larger and larger purchases, and they have a limited number of tickets that they're going to sell. It's kind of like that raffle that they did for Raynell Jacobson several years ago.
Okay. What
So-
else did we do while we were there?
Well, we talked a lot,
Sure.
and one of the nice things about it, of course, is Forrest he likes his women. I don't know how else to describe it. He likes women. He likes being around women. Of course, he wanted to sit
I think
down.
since he was a pilot in the Air Force,
Yeah.
a bit of a, playboy attitude.
And he's a bit flirtatious, even at
Yeah.
his age. And he just wanted to kind of sit next to you and talk.
So
and
yeah, I got to tell him about
ask
the
you-
competition that I'm going to be, the figure competition.
Your figure competition, and he asked questions about that. I think he
Right.
squeezed your arm to
Yeah,
see
to
if
see how strong I was.
and advised you not to get too
No, yeah.
built up because that wouldn't be good for you.
No.
So it was a fun
do that.
conversation. While you guys were kind of chatting away, I asked him if it was okay to take some additional pictures while you were talking. So I think what was interesting, whenever I visit with Forrest, I go out of my way not to talk about the treasure hunt. I don't want him to feel like I'm taking advantage of bugging him for clues. And he's been asked so many times, he's a
Yeah.
master of not doing it. But eventually he asks me, "Why are you here?" And it was really kind of fun. Like, why did
What
you
do you
come? What do you
want?"
want? And I said, nothing. Just came to say hi. I hadn't talked to you for a while, and things like that. And I think he appreciated the fact that we didn't want to talk about it. And I didn't bring up the search. I got the opportunity to take some pictures. He allowed me to take some pictures of his office, and between the collection of books, both modern and antique. He's got several antique books, especially on the shelf here.
Now, everything on the shelves, are all of these found items? What are these?
Well, the books, of course, can be purchased or found. I mean,
Well, right.
he is by nature
But I meant
he's not a
artifacts.
hoarder. He's a collector. And so a lot of these objects, some have been found, some have been acquired. And I've learned from about Forrest is that if he can do the trade, that's more important to him than paying cash for something. So if he wants a pair of, say, moccasins, or you want a pair of moccasins, for your collection, I think the first thing he'll ask you is, what do you have to trade? And I think that's how a lot of his collection has been acquired over the years. You could read some of his vignettes and stories in The Thrill of the Chase, and he has several stories where he just did things. The marbles story, where he did things just to trade up for various things, for cash, and he made marbles from mud to trade for cash. So he's not always into the cash, but he's into trading things, and he's and all adding to his collection. And I think what makes him good at it is he knows what his collection is. As a matter of fact, he asked you, right? He said, "What do you collect?"
No, he did, yes.
Yeah.
He also had a good long look at my necklace.
Yeah, the pendant.
Yeah.
I was very excited. That made me feel good because he didn't know, of course, that I had made that. And
What did he say? He said, "I'd offer you $10,000 for that, but I'm sure you're too in love with it to part with it."
I didn't catch that. What I thought, the part that I caught was you said he made it for you. You pointed to
Right.
me, and he looked at me and he said, "You're more talented than I thought you were."
Right.
Something like that. So
Exactly.
it was a lot of fun.
Oh, so anyway, yeah, it was a lot like being in a very small, cozy library/museum. So it was a really interesting atmosphere. He had a pinon fire burning in the fireplace.
And it smelled great.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm sure it wasn't planned that way, but it smelled great. So this was one of the other corner walls, and what I commented to him on was how well organized it was, and asked him if he had hired a professional to do that for him, and he said no, that he had done it all himself. So this is one of the two walls that were in his office, but he also mentioned that he has other rooms both on and off his property.
They look like tennis shoes, but
Oh,
they're
no,
like
moccasins.
moccasins.
The short moccasins. He has other units both on and off his property that in which he keeps the bulk of his collection. So,
Right, and
it
he
was
said he had a lab.
yeah, he has a laboratory that he both uses, and he loans out to anthropological and archaeological researchers to do their own work. I was surprised to hear, I hadn't heard, I wasn't surprised because it wasn't known, I hadn't heard that he had resold San Lazaro, the ancient Indian pueblo that he had purchased several years ago and had excavated for years and years and years. And I guess he got to the point where it was just too much effort as he aged. So he sold it to another researcher,
Right.
and still has permission to go back onto the property as part of the deal. So, but if
He
you
knows how to
haven't,
make a good deal.
yeah, he does. Yeah, if you haven't read the San Lazaro book, it's just beautifully. It's beautifully written, beautifully published. The drawings are amazing. And the reason it came up is because we started the conversation. I told him that I had had a new high-resolution drone and asked him if he wanted to get some new pictures of San Lazaro, and he said no, that he wasn't doing that work anymore. So it was kind of interesting with him. With him, it's always interesting.
I found it interesting that he said that he's constantly getting offers from production companies, and how many documentaries have been made about him and the treasure.
Which doesn't surprise me, because production companies know that there's profit in telling these kinds of stories. And I know it's hard for him. I mean, how many times can you tell the same story again and again? I think part of him likes the attention, and part of him is like, do we have to go through this again? He mentioned how frustrating it is to have a big production crew come into his house, start moving things. I can imagine starting to move some of his collection around because they want it to look just right for whatever he's doing. So I don't know necessarily that I was surprised to hear it, but I thought it was interesting that he had something in his head about it that he wanted to let go. So, but I guess that's how it can be when you're as careful with your collection as he is. So I won't take a long time. I saw this, it's a leather jacket of World War II provenance, and it was owned by a gentleman whose name is Don Lopez. Now, I didn't ask if Don Lopez was a New Mexican to begin with, but Don was one of the members of the Flying Tigers, General Claire Chennault's squadron that flew on behalf of the Republic of China. And it actually, the Chinese had started fighting the Japanese before the beginning of World War II. And Don Lopez had 6...
Well, before the U.S. had entered World War II.
Yeah, before the U.S. had entered the Asia-Pacific War as a result of the attack on Pearl Harbor. So the Chinese were already fighting that. They had hired and recruited these American Air Force pilots, or Army Air Force pilots. They had permission of the United States because technically they're mercenaries at that point. And Don was one of those pilots and had 6 kills before the war started, which is always
before the U.S. entered the war.
I'm sorry. They had 6 kills before Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And so it was an interesting story, and somehow he acquired this jacket, and he knew it was Don's jacket because the bloodshit, the emblem on the back, had a tear in the corner that Don had identified. And so when Forrest acquired it, he tracked Don down, and at the time Don had been working at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., where a good friend of mine works, George Larson, who's the editor of Air and Space magazine. And he tracked him down, and he found out where he was, called, and they informed him that Don had died the previous day.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a
grab all the bananas.
Yeah, you better grab what was the thing about the grabbing
grab
the bananas?
Every banana.
Grab those bananas. So he reminded us that his father had told him the story about grabbing the bananas, and he told us the story again. So, but it was an interesting story, and he has it hanging there along with all those Native American artifacts that he has in his office. So this is a picture of his desk. And I'm gonna post this someplace where you guys can access it, so that you can download it. What I thought was interesting about his desk was some of the items that were on it. On the far wingtip
point
of the right there on the
Right. Oh, this.
left on the port wing tip of that F-100 Sabre, which is the aircraft that he flew while he was in Vietnam. There was a big can of bear repellent, Frontier bear attack repellent. So I thought, well, he's keeping busy if he's still doing that. Behind the bear repellent, there's a box of, there's a Dutch Masters cigar box right here. And I thought that was interesting because there's a sign on his door that says no smoking is allowed in the house. And I know he doesn't smoke, so it probably didn't have cigars. And
Old cigar
yeah,
box,
it was an
yeah.
old cigar box. It didn't look like it was a new one that would have contained cigars. In the middle of the desk right here was a DVD called El Cacao, and it's a 30-minute short documentary produced by a woman whose name is Michelle Aguilar. And it was produced back in 2012, so I don't know why he has a copy of it. It's very South American, you know, it talks about the cacao tree and how it turns into chocolate, but how the peasants have to literally work their hearts out to produce the chocolate that we're eating. The other thing that I found was interesting that he had still had a collection of his bells and jars and canisters on the front of his desk. And honestly, I was under the impression that he had buried all of them, but there are several on his desk that I recognized from the book. Mm-hmm. So there are some still that haven't been buried, but had been included as part of the book. So I'm sure he has an intent one day of doing all of that.
No, is this like a frog or a lizard kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what he has. There are several totems. Is that the Native Americans have a name for that? Icons, totems. Mm-hmm. And one of them that he uses very often, and in the book, in The Thrill of the Chase, he says why he uses that. Mm. So he uses frogs, and the other one that he uses a lot is the dragonfly. Mm. You'll see a lot of those. But he used to inscribe sayings on one of these, mm-hmm. and one of them is there are a couple of them that have a couple of misspellings. I can't remember which one specifically it is. It's $1. Yeah, if you die with more than $50 or something like that, he who dies with more than $50 has wasted his life or something. Oh. But the dollars on the jar is spelled DOLLERS, and I've noticed it very early on in my research with him and mentioned it, and he said that was a bronze casting typo.
Okay.
So, nonetheless, it was fun. It was a fun day for us. It was very informative. I thought he was in very good spirits, mm-hmm. and I thought he was being his very social self. I mean, he didn't have to see us. He didn't have to talk about things. Mm-hmm. He asked me what my plans were in terms of the search. I think that's where we got as close to talking about the search. And I told mm-hmm. him what we're planning this spring. And of course, there was no indication either we were right or wrong.
Right.
You know,
you did mention where we were looking, and
yeah.
he talked about those areas at that time.
Yeah.
He, like we talked about Cody, Wyoming,
right.
and how he was on the board of directors for
the Buffalo Bill Cody Museum. Is it Buffalo Bill or Wild Bill? Wild Bill Hickok, Buffalo Bill Cody Museum.
Cody Museum. It was the Cody Museum,
yeah.
and how he was on the board of that, and because it was a great way to schmooze.
Right. Yeah, it was schmoozing because it had both former Vice President Dick Cheney and former Senator, I forgot the name of the senator that's very, very big from Wyoming.
Oh, I don't remember either. But yeah, that was interesting. And
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
He also talked at that point about those cameras, right?
Yeah, well, that's where this comes in. So this was posted, I don't know when it was posted because I picked it up on Chase Chat. Forrest posted this photo soon after the conversation we had with him. I don't believe that they're related. I just think he had something to do. So, and that resulted in a flurry of assumptive and conclusive activity.
Conclusive.
I just made that up.
Conclusive.
Conclusive. Well, it wasn't conclusive. That's
Oh.
the point. It was just like there was a lot of assumptions and there was a lot of conclusions,
Uh-huh.
and it was just a real busy. And the further down the post you got, the more
Outlandish.
outlandish they become. At least in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing anybody. I just thought, wow, they're getting really crazy. And to me, it was just kind of a cartoon, you know, and it was a
Sure.
cartoon that didn't have any meaning. Forrest didn't draw it. Somebody sent it to him.
There's no indication of what river this is or what state it is.
No. And,
Somewhere north of Santa Fe.
just somebody up the creek without the paddle, right? There'll be no paddling up your creek because you don't have it. And then he referenced it. But what I thought was really interesting is that when Forrest took this picture, he glued one of the objects to the front of the screen, and his desktop is in the background. And in the upper right-hand corner, you can see a link to
What is
the EarthCam Santa Fe cam. So you could click on that.
Santa
What's
Fe.
going to open in your, in his case, is that Explorer browser or is that Firefox browser, is going to be the Santa Fe version of the Santa Fe EarthCam. But while we were there, it came up.
Right, when we were talking about where we were thinking of going, and he had said, you know, there's a lot of webcams, earth cams that are always shooting out there, and he likes to watch the one that is fixed upon
Old Faithful.
Old Faithful.
Yeah. So that didn't strike me. That struck me as that struck me as the comment of a gentleman who has some spare time on his hands and knows how to use a computer articulately. And I didn't think about it. And then when we were leaving, after we were leaving on our way back from Santa Fe to Albuquerque, Shelley said, "Why the conversation about the earth cams?" And because it was really kind of out of left field. And I said, "I don't know, didn't know, but I guess it gives you the possibility to keep an eye on things. And if you stretched that concept out, as I go
Right.
something to conclude it, eventually I could prove through analysis that what I'm about to say is absolutely wrong. But
It's a total guess.
if I couldn't get to where my treasure was to find out whether or not it was gone, maybe there's something a webcam could tell me that would indicate that it had been picked up." That was my early assumption. Now, I've got to validate that, and I hope one
Whose
day...
early assumption?
Yeah. Well, it was your early assumption. sorry. Your early assumption
you.
that I've since stolen from you and
I know,
claiming right to. So,
Which happens sometimes.
so
The other thing we talked about, okay, I'm gonna tell a little bit more about the grab every banana. So when Forrest was young, walking around with his dad would have him and his brother go out after it rained and look for arrowheads. They were taught to look very closely at everything and find those arrowheads. So that taught him to be, very observant and to find things that other people might overlook. He had told a story about how he had come out of a bank one day and he looked down and looked around and he saw a diamond. And he picked it up and he thought, well, this was just somebody's, fake ring or something. And he turned it into a gemologist and had it looked at, and it was a 4-carat diamond.
4-carat diamond.
So because he looked where other people weren't looking, this is what he could do. He could find these things. And so I extrapolate from that he's suggesting that people have been within viewing distance of the treasure but have missed it because they were not seeing what they thought they would see. They're looking for shiny bright gold or
Bronze boxes.
something exciting and treasure looking, and there it is looking like a rock or a piece of a tree or something part of nature, and they're not seeing it for what it is. So that's what I got out of that conversation about grabbing every banana. He said, get every opportunity, look very closely at everything.
It was what struck me as amazing is I've spent my whole life traveling around in the mountains and dales and valleys of New Mexico and Virginia and Colorado and Arizona. And literally in that lifetime, I don't think I've ever found anything short of going into a curio shop and buying an arrowhead that even resembled an arrowhead. I don't know how he does so much of it. He must have a very good eye. So
He's been trained.
he has been trained, and he's very good. I mean,
Yeah.
he's done well by it. So
And that's something that my mom always had taught us as kids, was to look down. Adults very often don't look down. They're looking ahead where they're going. And so as kids, we were told, look down on the ground and see what you can find. And we would always find the pennies and the dimes and the nickels, and anything we found, of course, we got to keep. So we would look extra hard.
So what else?
Well, that's all we have for that. Let's talk about where people can go to join the conversation if they're interested in asking questions or leaving comments about our video today.
I think the best place to go, just because of the change, I would or you can go to our blog, where this will be posted, gypsieskiss.com. This will be the most recent post, so you'll be able to see it there. And for those of you that are followers of the blog, you can make comments there. But we're also going to post it on our Facebook page. And my problem with the Facebook page is you're going to have to look up the hunt to become a, what do you call it, to like the page. Just look up Fenn's Hidden Treasure. They wouldn't let us use a Gypsy Kiss because it's the name of a copyrighted piece of music that was done by Deep Purple. It's not a very good piece of music. They should take the name away from it. But you'll find us on Facebook at AGK, capital AGK, The Hunt for Fenn's Hidden Treasure. Should be able to find us. We do have an Instagram account that we're starting up. You won't see anything. I just put my address up there, TM Eunice. But we're starting an Instagram account. We're having the same problem with the name because it's copyrighted.
All of these will be in the comments on the video, so they can just click on them.
That's right. Yeah, I'll include these in the description, both the video on Vimeo and Facebook, because I will likely do 2 separate uploads because Facebook
And the blog.
And the blog, all of that. So the blog will be embedded from Vimeo.
Okay.
The one uploaded to Facebook will not be embedded. It will be its own upload.
So we are planning to do this type of a vlog weekly. Is that correct?
Yeah, every Wednesday we'll have a vlog that brings up a new subject and new perceptions. I'm not sure it'll last this long. We seem to cover a lot of territory.
Well, it's an introduction to what we are.
Yeah, it is an introduction. But what we'll do is we'll post a vlog very much like this in the podcast style, a vlogcast style, because that's where our conversations are. And again, a lot of the research is in my head, and I can get it out as long as I can have a conversation about it. And I think we can, between the two of us.
Now, is there extra special information that you have hidden away in there?
Yes, but we're reserving that for our subscribers and members.
Okay.
By the next visit, there will be an opportunity to both purchase video-on-demand content that goes into detailed analysis, as well as subscription and annual subscriptions and memberships. So if you want more detailed information, or if you want to really get into the conversation, you can become a member, and all of that will be done on our Vimeo account.
Okay, so look for that.
Yeah, we'll post all that information on the various social media.
Coming soon. Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have today.
Okay, no, well, that's all I've got. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to screen back to the beginning here, right there.
Here we go.
So, next week,
I
want to spend some time talking about a couple of things in Too Far to Walk. One is, I think, a visible typo. I think everybody's caught it, but I'll bring it up. The other is something of my perception. There's been a lot of discussion about whether or not there was an additional clue, and Forrest said, well, the clue's the map, and Forrest works hard to confuse things. But I found something else, and it was so obvious to me. I kind of thought to myself, why isn't anybody else looking at the clue? Why is there a discussion? This is the clue. So we're going to talk about that next week.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to that.
The big clue that's in Too Far to Walk.
Too Far to Walk. His second book?
The second book. Too Far to Walk is the second book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many books does he have out?
He has at least 5 that I'm aware of, including The Thrill of the Chase, Too Far to Walk, the book on San Lazaro, the book on
Lazaro.
the San Lazaro. He kept correcting me. San Lazaro, the book on the artist Gaspard from Taos, and children's book. Did he ever write the children's book?
I don't know.
There was a children's book in the works. I don't know if it was ever published. I
Okay.
haven't followed it closely. So.
Okay, so if people were interested in getting any of his books, where would they go?
You can buy them at Amazon, although I noticed the Amazon price is up to $85 on this particular book. It sold for $35 originally. It's out of print. You can go to ABEBooks, ABEBooks.com. There are some copies on there, but again, the pricing starts at around $85. So.
And if you're interested in that raffle, we're going to have the link on the description as well.
Yeah, we'll include the link to the raffle for the bag of money that, if once assembled, will make you $1,300 richer than you are today.
If assembled.
If it's
Yeah. Okay, and that's all we have for this week.
Yeah, I thought it was a good week.
Thank you for joining us today on A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.